matters. You know, what lies beneath the surface governs the impact you make on your world and how you live your life, you know, the quality that you bring to your own life and the lives of others. So that's the kind of thing I like to talk about here on Wicked Naked. I'm very pleased tonight to be bringing in a guest here in a little bit. I will be chatting with author Deborah Parmley. Deborah has written some romance novels. We'll be talking about her writing, her life, and the impact she makes on her world. So stick around, guys. Probably 10, 12 minutes from now, we'll be bringing Deborah onto the show, and she and I will have a chat and share a little bit more about our lives. So you guys know that I'm a published author, and I know I can hear the collective eye roll all the way up here in upstate New York. Good grief, going to talk about her books again. But you know what? Being an artist is a beautiful, beautiful thing. It really is, because we don't write. You know, it's very satisfying to be an artist. It's very satisfying to the person who is the artist. But the greatest gift is to be able to share that and to make an impact on someone else through our art, whether we are painters or we are writers or poets. If we can make somebody feel something in a world that can otherwise sometimes be a little bit monotonous, that's an incredible gift. And I got to tell you, I've written several books, 2 of which have been published, and that is a cool, cool thing. The first moment the boxes come and you open up the box, and, you know, I know you guys all use your Kindle readers and your e-readers and your other little gadgets that allow you to read books, but there is nothing like the smell of a fresh box of books. You know, it's such a reminder of that first moment when you're introduced to books. And I don't know if all of you are readers. If you're not, I hope you are, because there's so much to be gained by diving into a book, whether you're reading about history or you're reading something fictional that might have an impact on your life. I can remember being introduced to books, and what a wonderful feeling it was. You know, we were not world travelers. You know, we were the kind of kids that got up every day and played outside, and, you know, we went to school and, you know, got bumps and bruises and scrapes and scratches, and Mom doctored us up and sent us back on our way. But we weren't world travelers. We didn't see, you know, magnificent things. They were magnificent to us, as they should have been, because we were children and we were just learning about the world and, you know, coming in contact with new things. But the ability to open that book, to go someplace different, to learn about someone or someplace different, what an amazing journey that was. And I remember, you know, the crackle of the book when you opened it. And I used to look and see how many times the book was checked out, because those people weren't traveling the journey right beside me, but I wanted to see who else had taken it. You know, and I think years ago they even had like the first initial and the last name. And I'm going way back because that's how far I can go, because I've been on the planet for a while. But it was such a cool thing to open a book. And it has been such a blessing to be an artist, to share stories with other people. You know, I've written poetry at you know, kind of times in my life where there was a catalyst, you know, something of great depth happened to me and my life changed, and putting words to paper was the way I coped with things being different, because change is good, but change is also awkward, and it can also be very frightening. And being able to apply, you know, the words to the paper and go back and read through and maybe come to terms with that change a little bit, it was a great blessing for me to be able to do that. So I love to bring authors on the show. You guys know I also bring animal advocates on the show from time to time, animal rescuers. Stick around over the course of the coming weeks, because I am going to be starting a show called Wicked Rescue. You know, you hear about so many of the ugly, so much of the ugly side of animal advocacy and animal rescue. And unfortunately, sometimes that's the stuff that makes the news. And you have to dig a little bit deeper to find the miracles, and they're out there. You know, if you participate in social media, my mother thinks it's the devil. I disagree. I'll tell you, I've connected with a lot of, just really awesome people. I keep using the word magnificent. I don't know why. Maybe I saw the word magnificent somewhere along my travels in the last couple of weeks, and that is just the word of the night, is magnificent. So You don't go to a website and key it in and maybe you'll win a trip. But just so you know, the word of the night is magnificent if you're playing along here. But, you know, I got to tell you, I've seen some very, very cool things, and it has inspired me to want to launch a different show called Wicked Rescue and talk about, you know, the beauty of animal rescue, because there is such an intense beauty to it. You know, there's an ugliness that causes the need to rescue. There is, and it's undeniable. We see it every day. It breaks our hearts. It makes us question our very humanity. But there's a beauty to it also. You know, when people rally together to save an animal, when people rally together to save, you know, recently I had the opportunity to network with some folks in downstate New York who were trying to place 10 cats into homes because their caregiver, their mommy, their human mommy, is in the end stages of battling cancer. And to see these people who are complete strangers get together and network and campaign, and these cats found homes, and it's because people cared and they worked together. And that's a really, really cool thing. One of the very negative things that's in the forefront of the news lately is the frequency in which our domesticated pets are shot, and unfortunately often at the hands of law enforcement. Just this week it happened again, and you know, and it's a delicate subject because a lot of people, you know, I talk a lot about this on social media. I've talked about it on the show. People who listen to the show and network with me on social media, like, you know, there are frequently some very negative comments. You know, I don't understand, Kat, why you don't respect people in uniform. It's not about respecting or not respecting people in uniform. I don't believe, and you're welcome to disagree with me, I don't believe that there's any uniform or any position that commands respect. Guys, I believe that respect is earned. And when you're going out there, I don't care what you're wearing, I don't care if you're wearing a badge, but when you do disrespectful things, when you disrespect that position you've been given, when you bring shame to it, I can't respect that. Just this coming Saturday, October 25th, going on all across the great United States here, at noon, there are going to be rallies in the capitals of multiple states. I don't know where you guys live. I have no idea any more than you know where I live, other than the fact that I live in upstate New York. But if you're interested in doing something like that, it's a peaceful march. People are getting together to raise awareness, and hopefully something will change, because it's not right that we're afraid to call for law enforcement if we need it, simply because we have domestic pets, dogs. You know, I don't want to be afraid to call for assistance if I need it because I have dogs, and I'm afraid that my dogs may be in more danger than I am. So the rallies are taking place next Saturday, October 25th, in many, many capital cities across the United States. Check with your state. Google it. Find it on Facebook. The information is out there everywhere. It's something that's in the forefront right now. We need to raise more awareness. We need to figure out how we can, you know, how we can reduce the occurrences of this. Obviously, there are times that may be justified, but, you know, just this week, you know, I saw a video, I think it was just Thursday night, you know, with, at the risk of, you know, not using literary finesse here, you know, an officer using kissy sounds, and if you have a pet, y'all know what that means, to actually befriend the animal before shooting it. And it's just not acceptable. That kind of thing shouldn't happen. So just in a few minutes here, I'm going to change the topic entirely. I'm going to go back to talking about artists and their contributions, and I'm going to bring on Deborah. Actually happen to be looking at a poster right now with the name Barbara written on the back of it. So, Deborah, I'm sorry, I actually really do know your name. So when I bring you on, I will introduce you correctly. So I love the opportunity to meet other artists. You know, we're a unique group of people. I don't know if everybody is as time-challenged as I am, but, you know, very much like the person I've become. You know, I feel I make a good contribution to my world. I network with a lot of really cool people, and I stand up for, I think, some very important things. All of those things that make me like myself don't come in a perfect package. They come in this one. This one can't tell time. I managed to start my show relatively on time. I am punctual on occasion, but I try to tell everybody I'm worth their weight. And that isn't being narcissistic. That's not being arrogant. But when I get there, I will do what I've come to do, and I will make you glad that you asked me to come along. So, but all of those things, all of those quirky things, that is what makes up artistry. And once in a while you should, because we are quite a crew. We bring a lot of flavor to life. I love writers. I have a very, very good friend who is a painter. I have met a lot of other painters and sketch artists and things like that through her. And it's a really cool group of people, musicians. And, you know, I'll tell you, people out there doing their thing, because life is a lot of work. It's a lot of work, guys. You know, take some time to do the things you love and truly enjoy. So if you want to sit down and write a book, I'm not going to tell you it's easy. When Deborah comes on, she's not going to tell you it's easy. When I have authors on in the future, they're not going to tell you it's easy either. But it is so, it's really, really fulfilling. It's a lot of work. It's a wonderful journey, putting words to a page, creating a story, creating characters, or living a life. I write what I call true-to-life fiction. Very, very lifelike. I will admit, in the last book, Becoming Mona Lisa, there were a couple of things where people, you know, messaged me and said, I don't really think and realize that would happen. I said, well, it's fiction. You know, every once in a while you can put in something that probably wouldn't happen, like your stove might not blow up and fly through the roof. But you know what? There might be somebody out there whose stove blew up and flew through the roof. Nobody was injured in that scene, just so you know. So we're getting around 1:15 the hour here. I'm going to check in with the production staff, and I'm going to see if we have Deborah Crumley on the show with us yet. Deborah, are you with me?
I am.
Well, welcome to Wicked Naked. I'm so glad that you could join me tonight. How are you?
Thank you, Kat. I appreciate you having me tonight. I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I have to tell you, I have some advice. Don't take Sudafed before you go to bed. Because I was still awake at 2:30 this morning trying to solve the world's problems. So I'm not at my best tonight. But probably pretty close. But it's great to meet you. Deborah and I have not met face-to-face. We're meeting right now on the show here, Wicked Naked. Deborah, I'm so glad that you could join me tonight.
Thank you, Kat. It's nice to meet you, too. I've been really looking forward to this interview.
I am, too. Okay, Deborah, I got to tell you, I Googled you, because that's what we do. And Deborah has written several novels, including Trapping the Butterfly, Dangerous Ties, Aboard the Wishing Star, A Desperate Journey, and Twilight Gifts. And I have got to tell you, Deborah, I have already put you on my to-be-read list.
Awesome.
So how long have you been writing?
Oh, writing, I have been doing that since I was in high school with poetry. And then I moved into short stories, and then from there into novel-length fiction. So I've been writing a long time, but romance in particular, I've been writing since 2004, 2005, right around there.
Oh, my gosh, that's me. I've written a couple of romances myself. I think no matter who we are, we still believe in love. Things don't always turn out the way we hope, but, I like to think we're not so jaded that we don't believe in love anymore. And I really enjoy seeing a romance play out from page to page.
Oh, I do too. One of my favorite things is a happy ending. So with romance, you all have a happy ever after. I like happy endings. I also like hope. So most of the fiction I enjoy reading has some element of hope in it, even if it's not romance.
Right.
We need hope. It helps us to make it through the difficult times.
I agree totally. That's actually how I started writing. I lost my dad to cancer in 2006, and shortly after he was diagnosed in 2005, I actually said I want to write a book, and a friend of mine said, you can't write a book. How would you ever write a book? You don't have time. And the gauntlet was kind of thrown down. And what a miracle that I actually started writing that book, because it helped me to cope with the pain of losing my dad. And that just,
I can understand that. Yes. I lost my father actually this year in June, so it's been fairly recent.
Oh,
I can understand where you're coming from there, definitely. Writing is cathartic, though. I did a lot of journaling during that time, and it really does help. I highly recommend it to anyone going through a tough time. Journal out, and just even if you write a couple sentences a day, it's really helpful.
We fight those battles and we get through those difficult things, and I think journaling is so important because it gives us the opportunity to see how far we've come. Look at how strong we are, and look at what we've overcome.
Yes, it does. It does. And there's something about getting those words down on the page, whether it's journaling or whether it's writing a story, that allows us to release things that we can hold on to if we don't do that. So I like that aspect of it.
I do as well. And, I think you can take pen to paper or tap the keyboard like most of us do nowadays, and we can tell the story again and again, because oftentimes, no matter how great our support staff might not want to hear the story again and again. But, talking about that and writing it down and reading it back, it allows us to kind of repeat the story without actually having to tell it to someone who's possibly heard it, 20 times before. So I think it's very therapeutic.
It is. It does. And I do some writing coaching on the side, some mentoring, and I have some students that they hear me say this over and over again. Every time you come to the page, you're different. Every day you get up, you're a little bit different. So what you put on the page is going to be slightly different from what you wrote the day before. So even in good times, when you're writing, each day is different. It's a new approach. It's a new chance to re-envision your life, and it's a beautiful thing.
I have to say, the last book I wrote was actually about a failed marriage that was rejuvenated. And just watching them take the journey from page to page. And there were moments where I didn't know what was going to happen yet, and there it was on the page. And the hope that they had as they went through this journey of getting back together, I felt that hope. And sometimes I think if we can read it, it gives us insight into maybe how to improve our own journey, our own lives. So I think it's not just the self-help books, but even the fictional stories. Gosh, if this person can have a happy ending, then why can't I?
Exactly. I love to hear from my readers, and a couple of my favorite letters have said, the two Westerns that I have out, they start with women who are in difficult circumstances, but they don't end up in that same place. They grow, they change, they become stronger, and it really just broadens my heart when I get a letter that says, I could relate to that story and that helped me. And that's one of the most beautiful things about writing and having books out there, is that in a piece of fiction, we can relate to the things that we experience in our lives that they're experiencing in their lives in the pages of the book. So it's a way of escaping, but also experiencing along with that character, and maybe even learning and growing with them.
Exactly. Because every day we have the opportunity to change the direction of our own story.
Yes.
Yeah, because life it can be difficult. I mean, you recently lost your dad, and, the difficult times, sometimes make us feel weighted down and as if we can't move forward. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, Deborah, that, seeing, despite the fact that you're seeing a fictional character, you're seeing them grow and overcome adversity and believe that something better is coming in the days ahead. And sometimes I think that helps us to believe the same thing about our lives that are certainly not fictional.
Yes, exactly. I've been having a lot of fun. I wrote Trapping the Butterfly is my newest, and that one's set in the 1920s. And I've had a lot of fun with that one because it's my youngest heroine ever. She's 17, turning 18, and in that era when women were losing the corsets and cutting their hair, it was such a freeing time for women. It fascinates me. That era fascinates me because of that. And I have a lot of fun writing that story, so it's going to be interesting to see how the younger readers react to that, if they can relate to it, and I'm kind of waiting to see how that does. But I had so much fun writing that one, and it's a departure from the Westerns because the Westerns are about women from difficult circumstances. They're older women and in their 20s, and just a different type of heroine altogether. So I'm having fun experiencing that new aspect of writing to see, how that does with my readers and what they think.
You know what? Actually, I think that is a fantastic story because we're certainly not oppressed like we were, nearly 100 years ago. But I think a lot of young women now are oppressed by bullying and, fear of being an individual because, that fear of being persecuted, so to speak, by your peers in the form of bullying. And I think that could be a really great story with a big impact on a young reader.
Yes, I agree. Of course, that age that they're experiencing, they're learning who they are. 17, turning 18. Again, women both at that age are trying to figure out who they are, and they're just on that cusp, of being men and women from being children, and it's fascinating, all the different changes and the things that they try, and when you set that right into the middle of the 20s, it becomes even more fascinating to me because of all of the extreme changes just all around.
Mm-hmm.
Most people think of the 20s as being gangsters, and there is a gangster in the Al Capone's in there actually in the book. But it's not all about the cocktail and shooting everybody, and it's not all about the Valentine's massacre and all that. Everything that we experience today, every age, every type of person existed in every era. So it's kind of fun to look at it from more of a teenage point of view. Who, they're obviously not running around with Tommy guns, but they're experiencing that era. So I had a lot of fun with it.
Oh, that's great. Well, it should be fun. It should be fun. There are times that it's a lot like work, when you're trying to segue into a next section and you can't quite get there, and the writer's block sets in, and life affords so many distractions, that it's easy to get pulled away and not have to cope with that writer's block. So when it's really flowing and it's really fun, that is just a celebration.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah, my last book was a comedy, and I was in a really dark place, and I will tell you, I came out of that laughing because I had the book and the story and the characters, and I had this new fictional best friend that was seeing me through every difficult day, and I was watching her zany activities, and it's a real joy. It really is. I've never had any writer come on. I've never met a writer who made it sound like, oh, it was just work. We really and truly love what we do.
Yeah. I did a panel once with a fellow author, and they teased us afterward. They said her muse had a whip, and mine was, like a playful child. Mine is very playful. And I end up writing more than one type of romance, and I end up writing poetry because I let my imagination do what it wants, and I don't try to put it in a corset. So it helps me to write by writing more than one type of thing, so that I'm always writing something. I had one year where I wrote a poem a day, so I've got stacks and stacks of poems. And I like to tell my writing students that you can write for 5 minutes a day no matter what. Set the egg timer and just do it. Just set that egg timer and do it. And that is a huge way of combating that whole writer's block that creeps up on people.
Mm-hmm.
Egg timer for 5 minutes. It'll do it.
Yeah, I can actually remember once I inserted a grocery list. Like, I just had a really difficult passage and a difficult segue, but I knew what was coming up, and what was coming up was so fun, and it was crazy and zany, and things were blowing up, and I so badly wanted to get to the next chapter that I just wrote a grocery list.
I bet you're on a roll in the list, too.
And so, as it turned out, I sent her to the store. I'm like, you know what? I need to get her out of the way. Let's send her to the grocery store. And, I just kind of got her out of the way, and I was able to, kind of flow easily into the next section.
Yeah.
Deborah, what are you working on now? Are you working on a new novel?
Well, actually, I have some new exciting things coming out. I signed with a third publisher. I've signed with 6 ratings, and I have a short story coming out in January called A Change of Scenery. And that one is set in an airport and has a futuristic little bit of futuristic set into it. So they're looking at some other stories I have. So I can't talk about those yet, but I am getting ready to... I write in more than one story at a time. I bounce around. It's another way to prevent writer's block for me. So I have one I've started that's another 1920s novella, and then I have another Western that my Western readers have been kind of fussing at me to send them another one. So I've got a third one I'm working on. And I bounce around, so it keeps it fun for me to... I don't have a frustrating day, because if I get frustrated on one, I'll step back. And I'll say, okay, well, just sit for a while. I'll get back to you, and then I go to the other one. So that helps a lot.
Absolutely. I agree. Because, I'm thinking back to what you said, earlier in our chat, every day is different. You kind of have different mindsets on different days. And, there are days we might want to write comedy, and there are days that we might want to write something just deeply insightful because, that's what we need to do to cope with how we're feeling on that particular day. So I think having multiple works in progress, lets us do that. And it also, like you said, it combats the writer's block. Because if something's not coming,
Right. And movement helps, too. I love the story of Dr. Seuss writing Into Things That I Saw on Mulberry Street, because he wrote it on a train. And the movement of the train, that pattern is, and you think that I saw it on Mulberry Street, that pattern is in the language of the book. And I've noticed when I'm driving, things come to me, or if I'm traveling, and I've written on a train before, and I've written on a plane, and, it's just something about moving, getting away from the computer, getting up, moving around, it gets things going again. The energy of that gets the movement of the story going again.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. I've not yet written on a plane. I considered it the last time I flew, but I hadn't flown for a while before that. So I was actually a little apprehensive about flying, and of course I happened to fly out. Well, there's nothing like we're pausing for de-icing to shake you up a little bit.
Right.
You're flying through a blizzard. And
yeah,
I thought, I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to sit here and focus on landing safely.
Right. I can understand that. I used to be afraid to fly, and you wouldn't want to have sat next to me back then, because I would have tried to grab your hand and clench it. But I got over that. I've flown a lot. I used to work as a travel consultant, and I've set foot in 13 countries now, so in various ways. So I got really used to flying, and it doesn't scare me like it used to. But ice on the wings, that one would definitely make me nervous. So that's very understandable.
Yeah, we were fine, and actually everybody was, when I realized that everybody else was okay with it, You know, it was morning, and we were all going somewhere, and you know, the folks in the row across from me were going on vacation, and you know, it was a jovial setting. So it was hard to stay apprehensive because nobody else was worried. It was like, you know, I think it's something, if everybody thought something bad was going to happen, I think they probably wouldn't be chatting, you know, so animated right now. So I just relaxed, and I got there fine, and I was going to visit my daughter, who lives a long way away from me. So that was enjoyable.
It gets easier.
It does.
Yeah, you get past their fears, and it gets easier the next time.
Mm-hmm.
What are you working on now? What story are you working on?
I have 4 works in progress. So, but I work 2 jobs. I work in the real estate industry, and I'm also a freelance writer. I do freelancing, and I write pet-related articles. And I also lead a very busy life with my family. So right now, I have 4 things in process, and I have got to tell you, I haven't looked at any of them in a month. Wow. So it's painful to be the writer who's not writing.
It is. Yes, it is. Very much so.
Yeah, I have a standing joke in my full-time workplace that, you know, this work thing takes a lot of time, and it really does. But I'm looking forward to getting back to. I don't know if you were listening in to the beginning of the show, but I'm a very passionate animal advocate, and the amount of evil and the lack of human kindness in our world is really, I have a very hard time dealing with that. I find it frightening to think that we live in a world where, you know, kindness is no longer expected. We're surprised if someone is kind to us. You know, we're surprised if someone does something that is truly humanitarian. And I'm really considering going back to what is actually a thriller novel about a young science prodigy who believes he has come up with a way to identify the evil in mankind. And he does it from a very humanitarian standpoint. Like, I really want to help the world. But unfortunately, you know, if someone could actually do that, if they could isolate what causes man to think evil things, of course, there's always the possibility that someone with evil intentions could get a hold of this person. So I'm really kind of migrating toward that story, and I think that's the one I'm going to really work on next. Because I love to write fun novels. I really, really do. And I think the comedy I wrote, people just said it was a laugh out loud good time. But I really want to make people think about their world. And
you want to write fiction that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's I can't remember the saying that we have a dark side and a light side, and something about feeding the one or you feed the other.
Right.
And I think people's tolerance of pretty much every little thing has created the build-up to allowing more and more negative behaviors, just like the bullying. You know, there's maybe one bully in a crowd, but there's the people standing around allowing the bully.
Right.
So that's what makes the bully act out even more. So we have to stop standing around. That's the thing. We have to say that's
when you
enough.
turn a blind eye, you're just enabling.
Exactly. You have to say that's not acceptable to me. That's just not cool. Stop it. And the more it gets to do that, the more it'll switch the other way.
I would love to see that happen, Deborah, because, you know, I look at my nephew who's 12 years old, and I think I want to change the world for you. You know, one of the girls at work has this adorable little boy, this little baby, and I look at him and I think I want to change the world for you. I want you to grow up in a different world, because I think young people carry around so much fear and uncertainty. And, I'm not going to ask you how old you are. But when I was a child, that did not govern my life. We were carefree and we were joyful. And, you could walk to the grocery store with $1 to get some gum, and you didn't have to worry that you were going to be abducted.
You could play in the street, and when the street lights came on, it was time to get home.
Your mom was yelling from the front porch.
Right, and the neighbor down the street, they knew your mother's name and phone number, and they would call you from her. There was a sense of community there that somehow that's gotten lost.
Absolutely, the sense of community has gotten lost. So, well, it may be up to us writers to continue to create stories that speak to rising, in the face of adversity and hope and belief in better times and a better life.
Yeah. I've had a couple people comment on my westerns, and the comment that comes up fairly often is that they're gritty. And not everyone who reads romance wants to read about something bad happening to the heroine. Well, they are gritty. They're set in the West, which was a gritty time. And, but, I don't stay in the gritty spot, and I don't describe everything about what happened. I just let it be known that it did happen. And then it moves on from there so that the heroine is learning and growing and becoming stronger. So they start out at a weak point. They start out as a weak heroine, but they become stronger. And I like to put that in my fiction because, to me, that's if I wrote about a heroine that was, superwoman type, then fewer women would relate to it because, we're not all able to, leap tall buildings and all that. And I think most people have had something or another happen to them in their life. And that hope and saying that, hey, things could be bad, but you know what? They can get better. They can get better each day. And each day that it gets a little bit better, you get closer to it being even better to the point where you finally are in a good place.
Right.
And that's what I love about writing those stories. So.
I do too. I love that because you know what? Sometimes it's just the belief that you can take that step forward. It plants a seed in the mind, and that just starts to grow and grow because the desire to move forward has to be there before somebody can actually take those steps.
Exactly. And we all have our stuff to work on. Everybody's something, and, you just work on it a little bit every day, and you get closer and closer to where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And as we let each other know that, I'm working on a thing too, and I don't have to go into detail about it, but yeah, that's the human condition. Hopefully we're learning and growing and getting better. So.
I would like to think so. Well, there's a lot of loneliness and isolation in difficult times. And, I remember reading as a child and feeling like you had created a friendship with the character in the book, and I think that can ease that sense of isolation, and it can ease that sense of loneliness. When you're identifying, you're identifying with a fictional character, but if it does ease that sense of isolation and loneliness, then it's a true success.
Yes, yes.
I actually had somebody tell me, I read your book and I got my mojo back. And I thought, you know what? That's fantastic.
Yes.
I mean, you can't ask for anything better than that. I still believe one person can change the world, but if you change someone's world, gradually there's a ripple effect.
I do too. I had a job that kind of relates to this, and this is a recycling coordinator for the city of Bartlett for about a year and a half. And so I was in charge of a couple centers and trying to get people to do the recycling and, all the different things. So I interacted with a lot of people in that job. And even a small change, if it's consistently applied, will have lasting circumstances. even a small change. You may not be able to get them to recycle everything, but if they're at least bringing their newspapers, maybe 6 months from now they'll be bringing their plastics, and then they'll bring their aluminum. And it's just, sometimes it's baby steps and small progressions, but that's how we get there.
Right, exactly.
When you see somebody go from the small steps to the, wow, they're really doing it now, it's just an awesome feeling. It really is.
And I love that you equated recycling with moving forward in life, because I am an avid recycler.
That's great. I wish everyone was. Our earth is really important to me, and we need to take responsibility for our actions. So if we're bringing a bunch of stuff in our house, what are we going to do with it when it goes out? So
exactly.
It's not like the magic truck comes and takes it and it evaporates. It goes somewhere. So where's it going? So I know way too much about trash.
You know what, though? I love the fact that you said taking responsibility and being accountable, because I think that's one of the big things that is missing from everyday life. And it's startling how much you see it with young people. And there's such integrity in being accountable.
Oh, it is. It is, yes. It can be taught, though. People can learn. You'd be surprised how many senior citizens started recycling. It amazed me before I took that job. People say that older people can't change. That's not true. If older people are motivated, they can change just as much as anyone else. And it's kind of fascinating to see that.
Well, and it's great for them to have something to focus on.
Yes, that's true. And they're also sometimes more focused on what legacy they're leaving behind than younger people are. So they can be even more motivated sometimes when it comes to recycling, and probably with other things, too, that they get involved with.
Exactly. I know I'm seeing my grandma right now. She has dementia. She's 94. And, life goes by in a blink. And, I remember her as a young woman, and it's a sad and beautiful thing to watch them go through that, because I was telling someone about the joy in Alzheimer's, and they looked at me. As a matter of fact, I had met a new doctor last week, and she looked at me like I had said something just absolutely ridiculous, and I said, if you think about it, there is so much joy for them in a moment, because they don't remember the past. What they're experiencing with you in the moment isn't clouded by what happened in the past, and it's not clouded by worry about what's going to happen tomorrow, because their focus isn't like that anymore. So I'm not exactly sure how we segued from recycling to Alzheimer's, but I think it was just something that came in my head when you talked about the older generation. So I was inspired to start a stage play about Alzheimer's.
Ah, okay.
So that may be her legacy, is she inspired me to do that. And I think there could be a lot of healing in that, because it is a painful thing to watch.
It is.
But she actually just the other day was talking about things that happened in the 1920s, because it was clear she was remembering a time when she was a child, and she was born in 1920. So I wish her mind was such that, I could read her a story that took place in the 1920s. But, I don't think she would retain it, but I think she would find joy in the moment. And maybe just in that I was reading it to her. So I may read her your story.
I think that would be a wonderful thing to do.
I think she would really like it.
My father had dementia. He didn't have Alzheimer's, but he had dementia. Word that he didn't anymore. He used to read the newspaper daily. He was a newspaper man. But he still enjoyed having the newspaper read to him. There's not just the aspect of what you're reading to them. There's the fact that it's your voice reading it, and it's a very loving thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, do read to her. I think she would love that.
Yeah, when she first fell, and this was before the dementia, I read her some of my book while we were waiting in the emergency room, because Lord knows you could read an entire book cover to cover while you're waiting for an ER doctor. And just the sound of her chuckling. And, there were a couple of places where there was some colorful language. And, I definitely put, a kind of a 93-year-old editing on that, I'll say. That was not suitable to read to someone who was 93. So I edited it for the grandma reader. And she just loved it. She says, how do you do that? You just make up all these stories. And she was just fascinated by that.
Oh, that's wonderful. What a memory that you have now.
Yeah. And actually, how great it was that we had this chat tonight, because that made me remember when I did that for her. And, she was scared because she had fallen, and she was dizzy before that, so she was very nervous. I think it's very frightening to be 93 and your body is changing, and, you don't remember. And at the time, she knew she didn't remember. So at that point, she knew she was having difficulty remembering. She didn't actually have dementia or Alzheimer's yet, but she was starting to fade a little bit, and it was a scary time for her. And I think laughter is so healing. And I just remember the sound of her chuckling, and, and it was very sweet that, she was proud that I had written a book, and, just to make sure she knew that it was me, I flipped it over and I showed her my picture, and, that's a very nice picture,
But
I was going to try to explain Photoshop to my grandma. Well, Deborah, I've got to tell you, I wrap up here in about 5 or 6 minutes, and I am so grateful that you came on the show tonight, and I would love to have you on again sometime. We can talk about some other things. It reminds me of the joy in writing and the beauty that we create when we do it. So I'm so grateful that you came on tonight, and I am really, really looking forward to reading. Which one did I mark as number 1? I put down Trapping the Butterfly, and I think that's what you said is the 1920 story. So I'm excited to read that.
Awesome. Can I real quickly tell people where to find me?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Let's talk about that.
All right. I've got a couple things going on right now. My Dangerous Type is on sale for 99 cents. It's only on sale this weekend, and you can find it on Amazon. Also, there's a Facebook group called Pioneer Hearts, and that's the group that's putting the sale on. And then tomorrow night, there is an event on Facebook. I have 1920s book club that I started because I realized there really wasn't one out there. There wasn't a gathering place for readers to find 1920s romance. And so I started that so that we can kind of all introduce ourselves to each other. And there's a launch party tomorrow night from 5 to 9 on Facebook, and there will be prizes and games. You can actually go and find me on Facebook, Deborah Parmley, and then I'll have links to all these things. And I've got a new website launching soon. And then I will be in Georgia, Grovetown, Georgia, on November the 8th, and there's a book signing that's open to the public from 2 to 4. So those are all places that you can find me fairly soon.
Oh, that's great. You know what? I will also post this to my Facebook, so I'll share those links so that anybody who networks with me on my Facebook will be able to easily find you and begin networking with you.
Oh, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah, thanks so much for coming on the show tonight. I really, really enjoyed talking with you, and I look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you, Kat. I really
Good luck with your writing, and thank you for making this world a more beautiful place.
Well, thank you. It's been a blessing meeting you.
And you as well. Okay, guys, it's 7:51 in upstate New York, which means I only have a few minutes to talk here on just me, so I'm going to ease out of the show here with just a couple of more minutes of my rambling. I'm so grateful to Deborah for coming on the show tonight, because it can be kind of an isolating thing to be a writer. It's not a group sport. It can be very lonely sometimes, the hours you spend all by yourself. I think that's why we connect so strongly with our characters, and I actually really believe that that's what makes us create characters that you folks can connect with too. So just to go back and recap, I'm going to spell Deborah's name so that if you want to connect with Deborah or find some of her beautiful works, she is Deborah, D-E-B-R-A, and her last name is Parmley, P as in Paul, A-R-M-L-E-Y. So if you guys are readers, which I truly hope you are, because there is a journey and a beautiful opportunity in every story, you know what, I would encourage you to go to Amazon or to connect with Deborah on Facebook and learn about her works. So you know what, there's a lot of things that you guys could have chosen to do on a Saturday night, and I really appreciate the fact that you chose to spend the last hour with me on this show. I have to thank my DTM Wicked Radio production staff, especially since they were experiencing some technological difficulties right before the show started, and they got us live without a hitch. So you guys, I got to tell you, this has been an incredible journey for me to be a part of the DTM Wicked Radio family. I am so grateful. It gives me an opportunity to meet fantastic people, not face-to-face, but here on Internet radio, like Deborah Parmley, one of my previous guests, Linda Retzstadt, so many animal advocates that I've talked to here on the show. So, guys, thank you. I think it goes without saying that I absolutely adore you. So Wicked Naked will be right back with you guys in just 2 short weeks, so I hope you consider tuning in again. Before then, we will have the Halloween holiday. If you guys enjoy doing that, I enjoy doing that. I intend to wear my cat ears, and I know that's not terribly creative, but that's the way I roll. When you're a cat, you wear your cat ears on Halloween. So if you're going to do that, if you're going to go out and enjoy those festivities, be careful, be smart, and be safe. And until I talk to you guys again, you know what? Tell the people in your life how much they mean to you, because don't lose those opportunities. So be good to yourselves and be good to your world, and think about from time to time what your impact is. Just create a kinder world, and sometimes that starts with us just being kinder and maybe contributing a little bit more positive energy to this place, this planet that we all share. So, guys, I will talk to you again in 2 weeks' time. Until then, I really appreciate the fact that you tuned in, and I look forward to talking with you again. Happy Saturday night, and good night.